Hey there. We're driving deep into the metaverse today, specifically the world of standards in the metaverse. You know, it's something that you're interested in, and honestly, you're ahead of the curve on this one. Get this. McKinsey predicts it can be worth like $5 trillion by 2030. That's insane, right?
Yeah, it's a digital gold rush. And like
Yeah,
any gold rush, we need some rules in place or things are going to get messy fast.
exactly. And it's not like we're starting from scratch here in Australia. Research from Capterra shows that Aussies are keen on the metaverse, but they're worried about security and scams, which is smart. This is where standards come in. They're like the guardrails for this whole new digital world. But even defining metaverse can be tricky.
Oh, it really is. It's like trying to nail jelly to a wall. The white paper that we're looking at today actually gives two different definitions. One focused on shared virtual worlds and the other on interconnected ones. So even the experts haven't quite settled on one meaning yet. That's why setting these standards is so important, especially for users like you.
Okay, so let's talk about those standards. We've got this Metaverse white paper by XRSI, RMA, and Standards Australia. And let me tell you, it does not sugarcoat the risks. Some of the stats are alarming, especially for someone like you who wants to actually UEZ the metaverse.
Yeah, it's easy to get caught up in all the hype, but the potential downsides are very real.
Yeah, scarily real. One stat that stood out to me was about VR chat. Apparently, there's a user-on-user violation happening almost every 7 minutes.
Wow. Yeah, that's a stark reminder of how real these virtual interactions can actually feel. If someone harasses you in VR, it's not just words on a screen, it can feel like a very personal attack.
It's like the Wild West out there. But instead of dodging bullets, we're dodging virtual harassment. And then there's this whole thing about AI-generated avatars. They can look real,
Yeah,
which is already wild. But they're also seen as more trustworthy.
right. Imagine being scammed by someone who looks and sounds exactly like your best friend, but it's actually an AI that's designed to steal your information.
That's straight out of a nightmare. And it's not just us regular folks who have to worry about being tricked. The white paper talks about corporate abuse, too. Think hyper-personalized ads that blend seamlessly into your virtual world.
Yeah. Imagine you're telling a friend about your stressful day in VR, and suddenly an ad for meditation pops up right next to them. That's a bit unsettling,
Hmm.
right?
That's seriously creepy. It makes you wonder, like, how much control do we actually have in this metaverse?
That's the million-dollar question. And it's not just about ads either. The white paper also talks about the psychological impact, like body image issues from being constantly exposed to these idealized avatars.
And we're already dealing with that on social media. It's only going to get more intense in the metaverse.
Yeah.
It's a lot to process, right? But don't despair, because here's where things get really interesting for us here in Australia.
Absolutely. This isn't just a problem for someone else to solve. Australia has a real opportunity to be a leader in setting the standards for the metaverse.
Yeah.
And that's something that you can actually be a part of.
Exactly. And this is where I think your Aussie pride should be kicking in. Because the white paper makes a strong case for why we could be the ones to set the rules of the game. And that's a huge GE opportunity, not just for businesses, but for everyday users like you.
You know, Australians are some of the most active internet users in the world, so having strong standards here could have a ripple effect globally.
Okay, so we've talked about how the metaverse needs rules. And we've established that Australia is in a prime position to help write them. But what kind of rules are we talking about? What exactly are these standards?
Well, the white paper dives into some fascinating areas where Australia could really make a difference. I gotta say, some of this stuff had me thinking, wait, they can do that?
Right, like
Yeah.
it's mind-blowing.
Yeah, the potential applications of this technology are incredible, both in positive and potentially concerning ways. But that's precisely why clear standards are so crucial.
Totally. The first thing that stood out to me was the emphasis on accessibility. We're not just talking about making the metaverse accessible for people with disabilities, although that's obviously crucial. It's bigger than that. The white paper highlights how standards could ensure everyone can participate in this new world, regardless of their location or tech access.
Exactly. Imagine an outback school kid in remote Australia using VR to explore ancient Rome with classmates from around the world. Or someone with mobility issues attending a virtual concert from their living room and feeling like they're right in the crowd. That's the potential here.
That's amazing. And it's not just about experiencing things. The white paper also talks about content creation in the metaverse
Yeah.
and how standards could protect Australian creators.
Right. Imagine an Aussie game developer creating incredible assets for a virtual world. Standards could ensure they're fairly compensated if those assets are used elsewhere in the metaverse. It's all about protecting intellectual property in this new digital landscape.
That makes so much sense.
Yeah.
And speaking of protection, we haven't talked about child safety. I mean, this is a huge deal for Australia. And the white paper really dives deep into this.
Absolutely. We're already leading the way with the Online Safety Act and the E-Safety Commission. And those principles are directly applicable to the metaverse. The white paper specifically mentions the need for robust age verification standards. So we don't have kids ending up in virtual spaces that aren't appropriate for them.
Right, because the last thing we want is a virtual Wild West where anything goes. The white paper also talks about content moderation in the metaverse, making sure kids aren't exposed to harmful or inappropriate content.
Exactly. It's about creating a digital space where kids can explore, learn, and play safely, just like we want them to in the real world. And this is where it gets really interesting. The white paper dives into this whole concept of targeted influence in the metaverse, and they actually propose 4 immersive rights that Australia could champion.
Okay, hit me with those immersive rights, because this is where I started getting those Black Mirror vibes.
Rightfully so. The first one is the right to experiential authenticity. Essentially, it means being able to distinguish between what's real and what's an ad in the metaverse.
Okay, so I need to know if that virtual cafe I'm walking past is just part of the scenery, or a cleverly disguised ad for a new brand of virtual coffee.
Precisely. Transparency is key. The second right is the right to emotional privacy. And this one's a bit of a head spinner.
Oh boy, here we go.
So picture this. You're in the metaverse, and AI is being used to read your microexpressions, your tone of voice, even your heart rate, all to gauge your emotional responses to, say, a virtual product placement.
Hold on. They can tell if I'm secretly coveting those virtual shoes. That's both amazing and incredibly creepy.
Exactly. And that's why this right is so important. Just because they can do it doesn't mean they should. We need to set boundaries on how this technology can be used, even in a virtual space.
Okay, emotional manipulation in the metaverse. That's a whole new level of nope for me. So what else is on this list of immersive rights?
Well, the next one is the right to behavioral privacy. In the metaverse, platforms won't just know what you click on. They'll track where you look, how you move, who you interact with. It's like those targeted ads that follow you around the internet. But on steroids...
So basically, they'll know I spent 5 minutes admiring those virtual shoes, even if I never actually clicked buy.
Exactly. And that data is valuable, which is why this right is all about setting limits on data collection and making sure it's not being used to manipulate users.
Right. Makes sense.
Okay.
And the last, immersive right.
Ah, yes, the right to human agency. This one's all about making sure that even in a world increasingly shaped by algorithms and AI, that humans still have control, that we retain control over our decisions and our actions.
So no being nudged into buying those virtual shoes just because some algorithm thinks it knows what I want.
Exactly. It's about protecting your autonomy, your freedom of choice in the metaverse.
Okay, I'm all for freedom of choice, especially when it comes to virtual fashion. But seriously, this whole conversation has been eye-opening. It's like we're talking about the Wild West, but instead of cowboys and saloons, it's virtual reality and AI.
It's definitely a new frontier, with its own unique set of challenges. But as we've been discussing, Australia is really well positioned to navigate this new territory and to help set the standard for a safer, more equitable metaverse for everyone.
And the best part is, it's not just up to the experts and policymakers. This is where you come in. The white paper specifically calls out Standards Australia as a key player here, and they want to hear from everyday Australians.
That's right. They're the ones developing these standards, and they're actively seeking public input.
So if you're listening to this and you're thinking, man, this is crazy, if you're concerned about privacy in the metaverse, if you want to see a metaverse that's accessible to everyone, or if you just want to make sure some algorithm isn't dictating your virtual wardrobe choices, now is the time to speak up.
Absolutely. Your voice matters. You can make a difference.
Exactly. Head over to the Standards Australia website. Check out the work they're doing on metaverse standards. You might be surprised at how easy it is to actually get involved.
You really might.
And that's what this whole deep dive is all about. We're not just here to throw a bunch of information at you and leave you feeling overwhelmed. We want you to walk away feeling empowered, like you can actually shape the future of this technology.
Because you can. The metaverse is still being built, and the decisions we make today will determine what it looks like tomorrow.
So go forth and make your voice heard. We've given you the knowledge. Now go out there and be part of the solution. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the world of metaverse standards. Until next time.